What's up everybody, my name is Zach, welcome to my channel. Today I want to show you how I think you can make your YouTube videos and thumbnails look a little bit better using a couple little things that I get from like your Hobby Lobby or any kind of arts and crafts store. So if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. So let's jump right into the video and let me tell you how this could work. So I've got this narrowed down to about 4 different steps. First one is your lighting. Second one is going to be your background or whatever you decide to use for your backdrop or the background of your image. Number 3 is going to be your framing and making sure kind of like everything is straight in the image. It'll make it look a lot more eye appealing. And number 4 is going to be make sure your image is well balanced and not too crowded. So to start right off with lighting, as you probably hear everybody say on YouTube, lighting is your best friend. You can take something just regular and have the right lighting and it will make it look 10 times better. And that rule applies to this video. The easiest way to get good lighting is to be next to a window. You want to use natural lighting on your image instead of, artificial lighting like house lights or dedicated video lights like this one behind me. I'm actually sitting right in front of a window for this shot right here, so it tells you what you can get. And if I shut these blinds and turned on the house lights, it would make it look completely different and probably not as good. Natural lighting is always the best, and I would suggest using that because it's free. Now for your general idea of lighting, and depending on what your camera is capable of, the more lighting the better. The more lights you can have on your image or on your video, the better off you are, because you could take the camera and put it into manual mode and you can adjust how the image looks through the camera itself and not having to change your lighting at levels or intensity, or if it's natural light you can't do anything to it. So the more light the better, as long as you have a camera that can adjust it. And one more thing with lighting is you want to make sure you're not dealing with reflective surfaces. Now my wood desk over here was homemade. I made it myself, and it has like 3 coats of poly on it, which makes it really slick, and it's really nice to use, easy to clean, but it's super reflective. It's really shiny. If I put a light on it or even at an angle, it's going to reflect light off of it, and it's not really a good thing for your videos. You want to have like a good surface type that's going to kind of absorb the lighting and not make it bounce everywhere. And you just have to play with it to figure out what works best and how to use it. But my solution is to put something on top of it whenever I'm not using the actual wood look. Moving on to the second key point is going to be your backdrop or your background, whether it be the table like I discussed, or whether it be the ground or a wall, or in my scenario I picked up these poster boards and like foam boards to put on top of my table or on top of anything flat, and use that for a good starting point, which really helps absorb the light. And I will leave the links down to those in the description, and let me show you what that looks like on the table. Okay, so we got a subject here, we've got really good lighting, it's not reflecting off of the table anymore. Now we can add a little bit of color, and I've got one way I can do this right now that I picked up from Hobby Lobby as well, is a poster board. Now I picked up a green poster board which will probably match this logo right here, so I'm going to use it. So we can slide this in here like this, maybe leave it, I don't know, let's say halfway, and what I'm doing right now is framing it, and I'll teach y'all about this later on in the video. Now for the third key point, it's going to be all about your framing. You want to make sure that visually your image looks as good as it can. Now just throwing something on the table and trying to record it always works. That'll work fine. But a little tip is you can go on your camera if it supports it, and you can enable a grid view on your image. So whatever you're pointing your camera at, you're going to have a grid. Now that helps to frame your image. That's what it's for. So you can take, for instance, a top-down view, an overhead shot. It's just a rectangle, but you have a grid view. So you can take whatever is in your image and line up your lines or your angles with that grid view and almost get it perfect. Now it takes a little bit of time, it takes a little bit of practice, especially if you're having to work upside down with a camera, depending on how you have it mounted. But this is an excellent technique to get really, really good visually, like eye-appealing things on your video. And I guarantee you about every YouTuber that's big into tech or big into honestly anything uses this technique. And one thing I probably should mention is not everything has to be perfect. Sometimes one that's not perfect and symmetric and proportional is even a better look. I mean, it really just depends on the scenario. Different angles will always help you. If you can get an angle that people aren't used to, it kind of attracts their eye to it because they're so used to everything being perfect. If you throw something in there kind of from like the left view and centered or not centered, but in the corner of the frame, that could work. I mean, it really just depends on the scenario. Now this brings us to our fourth key point, and it kind of ties into the third, which means you want to make sure your image is well balanced or symmetrical, or you want to make sure your framing is right. So if I take something, for example, my laptop, and put it in the center of the frame, that's it. That could work. But if you add in, and I know you've seen other YouTubers do this, pretty much everybody that has an overhead shot, they'll add in these little kind of bounce offs around the image. Like corners will have something, even on the sides they'll have just some complementary things put into the frame that are smaller typically than what they're filming. So a laptop is a pretty big device, but they'll put in some pencils or some notebooks or a mouse. Honestly, you can use anything as long as the colors kind of tie into each other, and it will complement your image. Now, framing plays a whole lot of that. You've got to make sure everything fits, everything looks proportional, but you can get too much in the frame, and that's what a lot of people are afraid of, me included, is getting too much in the frame and people don't know what to focus on. You don't want to put the entire, additive all the way in the frame. You just want to have like a piece of it coming in, because if they see a side of a mouse up here, that's one thing. If they see an entire mouse, that takes their focus off of the laptop itself or whatever is in the middle of the frame. You also do not want a whole lot going on the right and then the left side be blank. There's times when that could work, but typically you want to make sure it's kind of well balanced and feeding off of each other with an image. Alright guys, so that wraps up the 4 key points I wanted to tell you about to help your YouTube videos or thumbnails look a little bit better. And if you go by these 4 points, I guarantee you'll have good results. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and comment if you have any questions, and subscribe. And the links to the poster board and the foam board that I got from Hobby Lobby will be down in the description. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next video.